Welcome back to Agency Ascend, the show where we share the stories from agents, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are helping shape the future of the insurance industry. I'm Chad Brummett with Coverica Agency Alliance, and with me today, as always, is Chris Strelacey, our Managing Director, and last time I said illustrious leader. So
you did.
So I think this time we're going to go with fearless.
Our
fearless leader for the Alliance.
Hopefully I don't fail that illustrious, fearless introduction. So we're actually joined today with Amanda Hightower. So Amanda Hightower runs a phenomenal insurance agency here in DFW, and she's kind of interesting in that she's decided to focus first out of a captive world on commercial insurance, which is not typical of what we see with entrepreneurs, but you jumped head first and you're killing it.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I have thus far not heard someone mispronounce my last name like you have just now.
I had a
the
hiccup.
Dialect.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, wow.
Amanda Hightower.
Went rogue. Okay.
That's
correct. Yeah.
I was going to fix it in post, and now this is totally going to be.
Just like a little, loosen me up a little bit. This is my first podcast. So, but yeah, thanks guys so much for having me.
So now we've gotten the awkwardness out of the way.
Yeah.
it is all smooth sailing from here. So Amanda, just for those of us out there in the audience that don't know you, right? Because it's amazing. Everywhere we go, everybody seems to know you.
Sure.
No, I mean, you do. You got personality. Everybody knows and loves you, right? But for those living under a rock that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background. How long have you had Hightower Insurance Group?
A little bit of my background. So I'm a North Texas girl with little spurts in different states for like months here and there over the last few years. But for the most part, just resided up in North Texas. Grew up in Wise County, if anybody knows where that's at, which is over out by Decatur. I went to UNT and got a BBA in finance. And then I graduated in 2009, which was right after the mortgage crisis.
So it's great. Great introduction.
Perfect. Like just the world was my oyster. For sure, right? It was I did it all wrong. I didn't even apply for one job until I graduated. Was doing fitness stuff at the time, and so I thought, I'll get to it. Like
Wait. Fitness stuff.
Fitness. Excuse me.
Yes, I caught you now.
Yeah. I have sometimes too, like a phonics. Like we're gonna talk later, and if I don't, then I'll just like stop someone's name if I definitely know I can't pronounce it right because I'm like, it's gonna come out bad. But anyway. So I got done with school, and there was absolutely no jobs. So I first got my first license in 2009, which was strictly more of your life annuities. Worked with a financial firm, and by 2012, I had my P&C license, and I had signed a contract with a captive agency contract per se with a specific carrier.
Was that Farmers? You can
it
say
was.
that.
Yeah. Listen, back then too, it was like, I just remember thinking like with the performance requirements, I'm like, oh, this is going to be like the easiest contract of my life, But also, at the time I was 25. Yeah. So it was like, I had no clue, and quite honestly, I just needed to work because that launching after college was pretty rough for me. So starting in 2012, I did have my own agency, essentially. I did DBA my business name, and then LLC'd it in 2016. So when it comes
real quick, for our audience, DBAing means doing business as.
Doing business as under sole proprietor, seek advice from a tax accountant or professional to find out what works best for you. But I wouldn't necessarily advise starting that way. So in 2016 is when I did establish the LLC. Under my captive contract, though, which played a big factor later on down the road, is I never updated my farmer's contract or my captive contract to that LLC due to, like, in the window I submitted for it, they updated their requirements for LLC names, and mine did not approve, and I could not afford to refile. So I was like, all right, well, we're just going to roll with it, And so it made actually like a positive impact. I mean, a detrimental tax-wise, but positive in regards to just being able to continue moving throughout business. Okay.
How would you recommend you prevent that in the future?
Okay,
if somebody's
so
doing
fun fact is, as prepping for this, one of the questions like, what's the biggest mistake? Well, just so we're all on the same page, like mistakes are so expensive, okay? So I would just say to anybody that's looking to get into any type of business is to consult with an attorney and to consult with a CPA or even better, an enrolled agent to make sure that you're always keeping the IRS very happy. But overall, that impact was, a person's salary, So like as far as how that sell goes, because essentially, and I mean, even my attorney, he probably should get paid for his patience towards me, because we went back and forth where I'm like, why can't it be this versus that? And he's like, I mean, you can do whatever you want. He said, but if you ever get audited, you're going to be in a load of trouble and owe a lot of money. So it was like, all right, well, let's just go out of the gate, on the right foot. So that would be that advice in regards to that. And the reason for that in 2016 was like between 2012 and 2016, I was just starting to like figure out adulting a little bit. Like basically between that window, it was really just like Amanda Hightower, the insurance producer. And then I think that was probably my first year that I owed like a solid tax bill, where I was like, oh, this is not fun, Honestly, not that an LLC is any better, but it's a little less, So that's kind of the year that I also learned that if you're like out in the dating world and someone's like, oh, it's a tax write-off, then that just like clearly means they make no money. So run, because it's not like they give you a check back,
We are going to be launching another series of insurance in the dating world.
Oh.
I think that would be phenomenal.
Okay, well, ladies, just so y'all know, at my age, which is not 40 yet, if you buy a house, apparently in this world, that means I want 18 children. Okay, but if a guy buys a house, nobody challenges it. Like it's like a normal adult thing. But if you're a female, it's like, what are you trying to get me trapped into? And I'm like, none of your business.
Hey, just to be fair, it could be 18 cats.
Yeah.
I will tell you. So we do have Animal Kingdom at the house. Okay,
Oh, no.
I got a little throuple of ducks in the pool. I'm like, what do I do with you?
Did they just fly in?
No,
or
they
you adopted them?
they are migratory.
Okay.
So
I thought you went to the pet store and bought 3 dogs.
No. Between that and the squirrels, like my husky, who's just like the sweet delight, right? She enjoys like plucking duck feathers. Okay. It's a massacre, but there's been no body thus far, right? And then I have a 22-year-old Grammy cat, and then I have a German Shepherd. Okay. So I'm not acquiring anymore, but then like I may or may not have already named the ducks, okay? Because they're so frequent, and then they literally come to take like a dump in my pool and fly off, okay? It's horrible, but nonetheless, I digress. Okay, so in 2016, I LLC'd, okay? And then from 2016 probably started the years of like bad employment, okay? Like trying to figure it out, like you really don't have a budget, but you have a little bit of a budget. So, you're going back and forth.
This is why you were in the captive world. Or is
This was just getting an agency up. Okay. So, so I did not sell, just to clarify, I did not sell my captive contract until January 1st, 2023.
Yeah.
So, so in this interim between initially signing with the captive contract in 2012 to 2016 of when I learned my tax lesson, probably from 2016 to 2019, and I'll explain the 4 years between those was just because I never acquired a book, so I had to build from zero. Right. So essentially
personal, commercial?
Personal lines. Yeah. Primary only, I would have to say too. But so in that window of 4 years, it really was like, again, like an agency producer that owns a business. It wasn't like...
You were the breeder, the
100%, yes.
account executive, the owner, the janitor, everything.
I'm still the janitor, to be quite honest, okay? And I'm cool with it, okay? So then by 2016, when I'm like, all right, let me start dabbling in a little bit. So then you start learning things like Texas employment law, everybody's favorite thing. And this is a right to work state. It's like, well, that still doesn't mean you don't have unemployment, right? Know, so, but then also just establishing the base wage or performance or whatnot, right? So I went through that process not great. Also, mistakes are expensive. Okay. So, but
Is that going to be our title for this?
Oh,
Mistakes are
100%.
expensive.
Very expensive. Okay. And that's another, like, if you call and want to complain, like, I'm kind of like, well, I warned you, because that's not it can be 5, even up to 6 figures of mistakes. Okay. So,
Oh my goodness. All on one employee?
no, I will say,
spread over
knock
time?
on wood, guys. Like, I've had no unemployment claims.
There you
Okay,
go.
because
Perfect.
there's all about being a little human too, right? So I've had plenty of friends in the industry that are agency owners that it's like, well, that sounds like a brutal approach. So you kind of get what you put out, which was a brutal response.
Yeah.
So
it's a right. Yes, it is a right to work state, but that doesn't mean you can't care for the people.
Oh,
as you treat-
100%.
yes.
And I will tell you that the one biggest approach is if someone's not working out, have that transparency, have that
Yeah.
conversation with them, and then encourage to say, hey, while we're here, let's put a time limit on it per se,
Yes.
like a month, 90 days, and let me help, like let me get you a letter of recommendation, let me help you with interviews, let me, do things to just help get them
Yeah.
moved on, because I will find I can say nobody, when I've had to have that conversation with them, nobody's come back and said, oh no, I absolutely love this job and I'm just like low performing, or, not doing my job because I decided to. It's like really, they're not fit for the industry, and that is okay, and giving them that encouragement. So that said, by 2019, well, in that window, what I had the most success with is what I do encourage is to maybe check out local colleges and see if they have a risk management program. And because ultimately, and this is kind of how I floated with a very low budget on payroll. And but I needed a little reprieve after like 4 or 5 years of just being everything, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't, you're pushing burnout, know?
Right.
And so with them, I was able to get enrolled through UNT, my alumni. I would do the eagle sign, but I don't know what it looks like, as well as like, I don't even know if they make a noise, but I was able to establish myself as a business there, and I was able to do college internships for credits.
Right.
And so the commute from my college to where my agency was like 40 minutes. I mean, and so it really ended up being very worth it. And it was great to have some UNT girls in the office. And so, and then they were even more elated that it was like a paid internship, even though it was like super not paid, in that sense, but they were in college, So anyway, and I still, both of them are now commercial underwriters. One was at
Wow.
Texas Mutual. Sometimes when my stuff gets referred, I'll bump her a text and I'm like, can you just tell me why what I did, And so she's lovely. So, keep good contacts.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's true in our industry as a whole. It's like you don't want to burn any bridges because you never know.
I'm telling you, I think, again, in the 16 years I've been around, I think there's maybe been 2 bridges I've just torched, and I've really had no regrets.
Yeah, I've got one. I've got one, and I
Yeah.
still don't regret it. And luckily, he's no longer in the industry, so I'm happy.
yeah, exactly. Like, you kind of take it to people that you trust, especially mentorship, where you're kind of like, and I'll be quite honest too. It's like you have tangible evidence as to why you need to torch this bridge.
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know. So that's been kind of that process. So that is what I actually love. Also, a lot about the business is there is such a human factor to it, right? So anyway, starting in 2019, after my 2 solid interns graduated, which they were only like 6 months apart, and they had really helped build up some residual for me to establish a payroll budget. Starting in 2019 is when I really started studying agency contracts, agent contracts
Right.
that I've signed up for, because outside of that, even though it was a
Your
captive.
iPhone contract? No, I'm kidding. Who actually reads that?
I know, but listen, they all come and bite you in the butt at some point, okay? So again, I think an attorney's advice on anything business related, he's such a kind, sold man, and he's from my hometown, and I think he just puts up with me for entertainment. But yeah, I mean,
So when you were reviewing your captive contract, is that when you started, like what
triggered it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what triggered it was in what year are we on? 2021, Christmas Eve. No, 2020, Christmas Eve. I got hit by a car jogging with my dog. Okay. and is
not the traditional way to go independent.
correct, or to start.
I don't know if I'd recommend that.
I don't know. Like, I think it's a cool way to like start evaluating life's decisions. Like I didn't have any broken bones or internal bleeding, but I had a substantial TBI, traumatic brain injury, and really, I was getting to a point in that captive contract that I was like literally planning to stop my life, go to law school, figure out how to sue, and burn the whole world down. Okay, I mean that was like I literally went and took my LSAT. I was gearing up. Like everybody was like, please go figure out how we can do this, because a lot of shifts were changing, but our state laws here in Texas are so much different than other other states, that there have been successful ways to protect our business in other states due to their laws, right? So anyway, again, I'm also a redhead, so when you piss me off, or upset me, I'll never forget. I'll remember forever, right? And then I'm slowly mapping out a plan, And so my plan at that time was, I'm going to law school and, we're going down, right? I remember that morning clear as day. And I was double timing it, right? I was working full time. I was taking LSAT. I was prepping for this. Good news, UNT, my alum, whatever that eagle noise is, okay? I thought they opened a law school in downtown Dallas. They had a part-time program. I'm like, this is God's calling for me. Like, I need to go. I was exhausting myself, okay? And I was not at fault. I was in a crosswalk. This guy was texting and driving, and just gunned it and clipped my back leg.
Oh
okay.
Gosh.
My German Shepherd, she's alive, survived. She's wonderful. Thank goodness, because in a TBI, the one thing I screamed at everybody was like, where's my dog? And you're a liar, And by the time I actually gained consciousness, like I'm strapped to this gurney. I got my arms duct taped because every time I'd like start coming conscious, I'd just start flailing, But all this to say, with TBI, you don't have a lot of short-term memory retrieval, so it's kind of like 50 First Dates or Dory and Nemo, Finding Nemo, to where I'm like, well, I guess the one thing I do know after this amount of time, I think it was like 12 years in, is like I know insurance, so I can't think of anything else. I can't retrieve the paragraph I just read, 5 minutes ago, but okay, so maybe I should just be like thankful that I'm still like earning revenue and stuff like that. So as well as like, not a lot of people get to be in that position and still have a job and, things like that. Anyway, what happened was I realized like nobody was on my business accounts. Nobody was on my entity. Nobody like was this going to go to my dog, which, could have been, or my family would have had to gone through probate, or if something disabled me, like I didn't have any backup plans. So I was under the assumption that my contract was inheritable, okay, per verbal communication with people within this company, right? So I'm thinking, Miss Smarty Pants, like I'm going to go get my little estate attorney who's a partner with now my business attorney, right? I'm going to show up and just look so smart and be like, okay, like I need to make sure all my stuff's in order, have a medical power of attorney, P.S. Everybody should, just because like if you're in that after the fact, there is nothing that can happen after the fact. So if something had escalated, like it would have taken a long time for anybody to be able to evaluate quality of life.
The
IRS
would be knocking on the door.
All over, yes. Yeah. And then you have staff and employees that are expecting a paycheck, but like literally nobody can get paid, So anyway, I go in because the carrier contract, just like they are, like 7-8 pages, right? And I'm like, it's inheritable. So this is who I want to leave it to. And I've never, and if you don't have any attorney you've ever worked with, they kind of have like RBF pauses and like breaths, and I'm thinking, why are y'all looking at me that way? My head, I have yet to speak because I'm like, wow, this is a long pause, but I'm like not going to break first, and they're like, this is something you organize with the contract holder, and I'm like, oh, well, I've tried, but this didn't work, whatever. So thankfully he's like, well, let me go get the business attorney, and it was like 6. He flips to like the second page and he's like, it says right here that this contract's like done basically once you're dead. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like it says it
not transferred.
Clear as day. Yeah. Yes. And so I'm like, okay.
But wait, your contract was only 7 pages?
Mm-hmm. I was on an older contract.
Okay, yeah.
Nowadays, that's why I've told everybody, I'm like, if you've signed, I know nothing. Because quite honestly, I signed that contract and then they like revamped all contracts within like a couple months after that. And so I knew I was like the last contract to get on, where I would ultimately end up having a little bit of, poking the bear back and forth because there was nothing they can do, and I kind of knew it, kind of thing. So ones today, I'm sure they're books long and they don't actually like own the data kind of thing, right? So I've heard, essentially, because again, I'm not an attorney. I don't look at that.
Well, but it's even true on the independent side. I mean, you can wind yourself in a contract where your
100%.
data is owned by the vendor or
100%.
something to that aspect.
Or with other alliances where you don't even own the book.
Right.
Right.
So
right. I know.
To your point about transferability, all of those things, those are real things that you want to be able to step in, have an attorney look over it so that they're aware.
That's right. Because also what occurs, because then when we were having a conversation, he's like, also the contract's in your individual name. And at this point, I did have the LLC. I'm like, well, what happens to LLC? And he's like, well, I mean, it still continues whether your heart beats or not, And I'm like, oh. And he said, so how many of these contracts, or do you have any contracts that are under that LLC? And I'm like, no, So essentially, I then kind of said, well, no, because this carrier doesn't approve my LLC name, and I just, again, the amount of which now this gentleman, I do tell him like every time we talk, I'm like, I need you to open with like a dad joke, okay? Just so like break the air, because there are times, and I've had to refer people to them for like probate to his business partner, and they'll call me back and they'll be like, I've never felt more dumb, and I'm like, it's okay, it's just they're processing, but in my head I'm like, now that I've worked with them for this long, I'm always like, do y'all know how you're coming across? Like, terrible. You guys need to get, like, energy.
You have no bedside manner.
Oh, they don't,
They're
but also, exactly, but show me an attorney that does have bedside manner. I'm like, it's kind of on brand,
Yeah, I mean, do we really want our attorney cracking up jokes the entire day?
I would like a little, I'm telling you, 5 seconds of just breathing is more uncomfortable than you realize. Okay. So
here's your joke for the day.
Yes. And also, no, they're not trial attorneys, and they're not built with personality either. You know what I mean?
So this is a phenomenal, what is it called when you're giving them a shout out? Yeah, this is a good shout out for them. No,
I know. I'm not releasing their name, because I also have learned if you ever do business with them and then I have to do business with you, there's a conflict of interest. So I'll never squeak on this side of things. So
you're like, it's my attorney.
I will for probate. Okay. If you need someone to probate, I have someone, period. Okay. But not for business. So anyway, because I did mess that one up too. And the same guy, he comes back, he's like, why would you do this? I'm like, I'm sorry. So anyway.
So 2019. Mm-hmm. This is where you're at.
This was 2021.
Okay, yeah, 2021.
Yes, 2020. So then I looked back and they said, well, can you just go talk to the carrier? And I'm like, that's not how this works. They're not going to change a contract for me. Okay. And then things were occurring. On the captive side, it's like you really don't have a lot of control, right? Like you get a heads up. It's more respected if you get like a 30-day heads up versus like a 24, 48 hour heads up. Hey, by the way, we're taking your commission from 14 to 10%, or hey, by the way, due to your total premium, we're cutting your commission in half. It's so rough, and I was getting to a point where I had staff, I wanted to take a vacation, I wanted, and then also the human in me also says, if this person's going to spend 5-10 years with me, then I want to be able to continue to compensate them correctly and make it feel like at the end of the day they have like a retirement fund, or they have they've done something for their family, right? So every time this captive carrier would have these updates, it would impact my ability for payroll, and I would have to say, and so but again, I started completely different, but than a lot of people. But by 2019, I was getting to a place where I was shifting more into owning a business with agency producers than being that agency producer that owns a business, and so and I kind of enjoyed that a little bit more, or I had some reprieve. Even today, I love sometimes just stepping back in and doing just sales. Okay. I'm not in that position yet. I look forward to it, because I'm good at it kind of thing. But, on the backside, I was getting upset because it was like, this is what I was working towards and it's getting impacted, in not a great way. And I liked my environment that we created. We were, at the time we were like what we called our 3 best friends that anybody could have, but every update was just hitting, So when I started looking at, or I was noticing other people that maybe started in a different industry, different business, like they were able to start quantifying the time spent. And then when I go back and look at my gross sales or revenue that was bringing in, it's like I was plateauing. Now, surprisingly, I still grew maybe like 3 to 5%, but not to what, and not that I'm never one to look at someone else and be like, I want to be like that, but it wasn't hitting on average, you know? So I have my securities license too. So then it's like the investor in me is looking at a return on investment. And it's like, you start with X amount of dollars and then you're coming up on 10 years and you're like, what is the ROI? And it's like less than what like an annuity or CD's pacing, kind of thing. So you're like looking at it from an investment perspective. So then you loop back to this captive contract. You're having to ask for permission for everything. You're just having to essentially beg to be able to continue to earn income, right? And then they're kind of feeding this kind of like, I don't even know, y'all could totally burp this out, but like the cult-like experience, the rah-rahs. I've never been great at that.
It's the same thing when you look at a lot of, because my dad talks about this too, if you notice the people that are all winning the awards, they're making the company a lot of money. But they may not necessarily be making much for themselves. It's like that's who wins
what I do find there is, there's usually 4 different type of personalities out there, right? But like also, and I'm not a person of that processes this way, but I do realize on the backside how much like job titles and words of affirmation and recognition, it can go a long way.
Yeah,
I can. And people can get carried. Now on the like on my side, I always became more sensitive to like people's struggles. So it's like even on the corporate side of someone, if you're more territory or corporate side, came to me and started like telling me, oh, we need to hit this, and then I'm also like really competitive. So if they're like, oh, this district, one thing I think they learned was there was an adjoining district.
You get a bunch of salespeople in the same room. Competency.
But so it's like, as weird as their strategy is, they were pretty tight on figuring out what made us all tick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's a little wild. But that shift, what I was noticing was, I felt like I was ultimately being manipulated, and then I think when that started setting in, the redhead started coming out of like, take a note, I even remember, calling upset one time and I literally could just hear it in the inflection, the voice inflection, or, where it was like, I can tell that you're thinking that you're just going to pat me on the back and just, oh, she's good, guys, and it's like, nope, she's not, but that's cool, I could see how all this was really hitting my staff. Customers weren't happy. Ultimately, in that position too, due to the limitations of us not being able to broker out and look for different product, and us we were just shifting into that commercial shift, because and this really was probably the saving grace in that whole contract negotiation was in the current captive carrier, and is I ended up a month after like giving notice of like, hey, this is the shift we're making. That was a business move. It wasn't emotional. Okay. But they responded emotionally, which was fine. But is that I had written the largest commercial account in Texas. So that really got a lot of people off my back, versus a lot of people give notice and then all of a sudden they'd start going through the details of like, what could they catch you on a technicality or for cause, like by the time I sold that contract in the captive world across the board, regardless of carrier, if you were a captive carrier, you were hunting, and I was so like nervous, even when I was in that like kind of 30-day holding period, I just ended up leaving the state of Texas because I was like, if I'm around here, I'm going to blow it all up, and then I went to Tahoe where I have family and got frozen in. I'm like, this is perfect. God totally just froze me in an ice cube. Like I cannot move, So that helped. It's all about strategy. But I have to say too, like in that position, I had gotten legal advice. I was working with an attorney 6 months out, making sure I understood my limitations, and ultimately when it all played out, like it hit right. And so it does take planning, intentions, and that's a big thing too. It's like I don't encourage anybody to make an emotional decision. That wasn't the first time I've been angry, but it was like enough to say it's not changing,
So you actually made the decision to pivot over to commercial before you exited the captive world?
Because I did write that it was a large account. That premium, but for that one account was about $550,000 for the year. And in the market, when the captive carrier was just trying to figure out how to hit this, like hit all the numbers on the personal, And even then, I basically just made the commitment that, like, hey, I will keep my mouth shut. I will leave this here per my fake non-compete, okay? But also, like, it wouldn't make sense to interrupt midterm, so I'm not going to do something detrimental to the client, if I can just be at peace, like just leave us alone kind of thing, right? Yeah. And honestly, I have to say this too about the captive side, because I now being on 2 years in on the independent channel, there is something to be said about the captive side in the sense that, like, you do get an idea of what it takes to operate an agency as far as like policy sales. Okay. The struggle on the independent side is a little different because you don't realize you have these operational things come up.
The captive takes care of a lot of things that the independent side that you have to kind of figure out.
There was an attorney client. Somehow someone got referred, and the gentleman was an attorney, and he had asked me questions about captive stuff, and he even said, like, I told my son, who just was graduating from college with a business degree, he said, I told my son, just get a captive contract for, say, 3 years, learn the business, and then sell it, and we'll go independent, and I'll help fund it. And I said, I think that's a great idea. I mean,
they have some great training tools.
They do.
Some of the best agencies and writers and producers started off their career on the captive side, learned how to sell, learned how to take care of clients, and then when they jump in the independent, don't lose what you learned there.
That's right. Yeah.
Leverage it.
Yeah. Yes.
It's just it's much more open as far as if you're an entrepreneur. How do you build? What do you want to build? What do you want your culture to be? It's no longer building the captive culture. It's your company, the culture that you want to have for your clientele, for your employees, for your future.
Yeah. And it's shifting to that too. It's like the prior 2 years between 2019 and 2021 where all that went down, and then, prepping to depart starting in it was August of 2022. There was a situation that occurred that I was like, and I remember I was out of town in Florida, and I thought, I'm done. As soon as I land in Texas, like
what made you look at Coverica Agency Alliance? I'm sure you researched a lot of different options, or was I the best one? No, I'm just kidding.
You know what? I have to tell you guys this. So this is kind of on brand for me. But to answer your question about the shift from personal lines to commercial, that is how we learned to supplement with these captive contract updates. I had under my contract more of a give. Yeah. So we learned it because it was where the money was at for us, right? And the answer is no, we did not do a lot of research. Okay?
Oh, no.
Because we didn't have time, okay? Like, we were on a time crunch. This is even better. Did I never tell you this?
No.
Okay, so I thought I could just walk in and do my whole, I don't know, like maybe My Cousin Vinny kind of scene, okay? And that, like, again, same with college, right? I graduated with a finance degree in the worst time to hunt for a job, right? The market shifting, and I'm just like, just going, burning that bridge. I'm lighting that torch, leaving, thinking, I could go independent, not a problem.
I'm just going to walk into Travelers, and they're
That's right.
They're give me that appointment.
Everybody wants to hire us, okay? That was not what happened, and I had already, started that match, and I thought, oh gosh, and I thankfully had had a venture capitalist as a client. So as far as that August preparation, get an attorney, okay, talk to someone that's at least bought and sold some businesses to get an idea. And because I called him and I said, I'm doing, this is what's happening. And he was like, so happy. He's like, congratulations. I'm like, no, I'm like having a panic attack. Like I'm sitting with my head between my knees right now, just breathing. Like stop sounding so excited. He's like, well, this is what you're going to do. So he kind of got my game face on. Okay. Which was.
He shook you up and said, all right, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. Like act like you got this buyer just eating out of your hand.
Yeah.
And just, you're going in just to give them a heads up that this is the direction I'm going, unless you guys have someone. Okay, I had nobody, to be clear, okay? And then I just, again, lit that match, and I walked out, and then I was like, okay, great. And then the girls in the office, which at the time, not to be gender specific, but they were girls, and they are my girls. So anyway, even though one is like our office mom, and she's wonderful, but then I get back to the office and I'm like, let's sign these independent contracts. Like, we're just, you know, and then it was like, oh, there's this thing called new appointment holds in the state of Texas due to saturation. And the fact that like everybody was leaving, or, you know, there was a higher volume of people selling their captive contracts. And so after like, I don't even know. I mean, I put my best, like I put together a resume for the agency,
business plan,
everything. Yeah, because I was like, and if I could leave it in a voicemail, I would. I mean, these voicemails had to have been like 8 minutes long. You know, of like what we've accomplished, what we've done. Like, please let us write insurance. You know, kind of thing. And then one of my staff, Melissa, she knew Access Plus employee agent. Okay. She said, do you want me to text her? And I'm like, yes, please. Because like any warm, I mean, it was literally like
I need something.
Correct. Like, hey girls, like our term date's coming up and we have like nothing, or we got to get good at commercial real fast, you know, like, cause we weren't pacing, you know, and I thought, oof, this is going to go real bad, you know? I think if I hadn't already been exhausted, I would have been more anxious, but I mean, I was like, walking on caffeine.
Yeah. You were surviving off of the IV.
Just, you know, and I reached out and then immediately, like within 24 hours, the recruiter showed up at the office. And I mean, I had a full presentation. This is why.
You sold him, not or her. Who
it was Pat. It was Pat.
You sold him before.
If you would just give me one personalized appointment, because again, I already knew with my captive contract, like
you're used to having one.
Correct. I also know how to sell a very unmarketable product. So like at this point, I just needed revenue, you know? And so, but then I did think putting on, you know, my attorney feed self, you know, that's paid for a lot of legal advice per se. I'm kind of like, well, can I just make sure that I get to negotiate? Like this is a working contract in the sense that like if it doesn't match what we're trying to do, are there ways to modify it? Are there adjustments? And there was flexibility in it, which is what I was looking for, you know, because
I mean, most of the issues in your history that you've brought up, I mean, our contract, our base level contract answers all that.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, can you transfer it? Yes. If something were to happen to you, are we going to take care of it? Are we going to pass it over to one of your families? Are we going to help out in that? Yes.
That's right. Yes.
So you get a lot more flexibility.
Right. Because I remember too, like following up with my attorney, like I asked the questions you're going to be so happy about, and he's like, all right, we'll send it over. And then also I was like, oh, by the way, I already signed it, you know, because we needed to make money, you know. And
I like that. So you're looking more for validation rather than actually negotiation.
Like, did you go point by point through the contract before you signed? Okay, so you did. Okay, that's
yes, but I didn't want to bother my attorney because again, it's still only at the peak of like getting over RBF pauses, you know, where I was like, oh, you know, and I was feeling real low, you know, where I thought, I think I'll have a full meltdown, like a 5150 hold, if he's kind of like, this isn't a good contract. I'm like, it's the only one I could find, you know.
What did he say?
Oh, he said it was great, you know, per se, right?
I like that validation.
That actually was the biggest. So in that window of like deboarding and onboarding, the amount of phone calls I got of people that were like, what do I do? And I'm like, get an attorney. Nobody. And I'm not saying they're inexpensive because they're expensive, but it is a nominal amount compared to the errors that you could be making that really can have, again, mistakes are expensive, right?
Or hey, call, like you said, call somebody who's already been through it.
That's right.
They can give you points along the way. And you've reached out and connected with a lot of our other members in the industry.
Oh, for sure. And, you know, and the truth is like, I would never come back and be like, you said, like, I'm responsible for my own decisions, for my own legal advice, for everything like that, to where I make it very clear because at this point too, it's like knowing myself, like I have assets to protect. So I let people know I'll identify, this is where I would ask questions.
Yep.
Based off of this language.
This is where I get legal counsel.
That's right.
And then this is where
that's right.
You're good. Go.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. And when you feel comfortable between you and your counsel, then you do it. The funniest part, because this is actually kind of what strengthens our commercial business too, is like it is simple reading. Okay, just like it was when I went in and it was like, I can, you know, leave this to my niece and nephew.
You have so much experience as a business owner and the legal side, so you can actually empathize with the business owners that you're writing.
That's right. Well, and also like on the commercial side, if you guys know or don't know, is the duty to defend clause, right? Yep. So you just need to be operating within a scope of conduct, which here's like the fun fact. Okay, I left my commercial insurance with captive carrier because I was like, if you guys sue me, which I knew they couldn't, quite honestly, because of the way that they had in my contract note, my contract was like 10 years old at that point.
Yeah.
So if it's like, so again, get legal counsel, but I knew if they did present me, then their company was going to pay for my legal fees.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And so I left my E&O. I left everything, and then I paid for tail coverage on E&O. So therefore, even if it would have been, I left my professional liability as well as personal injury and things like that. So that way, it kind of a safeguard where it was going to be like an LOL in my head. I mean, the whole thing would have been stressful. I don't encourage lawsuits, but it was just like an extra set of protection, essentially.
Tell us kind of, you've gone through the transition, you've built your agency, you've got a great foundation going forward. What's the next stage for your agency?
And before we go there, what does the current makeup look like, right? Because you started as personals and you shifted towards commercial. So are you still like a 50-50 or?
So when we did that shift, I mean, we were heavy focused on commercial. Okay. And so are we?
No.
Okay. We came out the gate heavily focused on commercial because there were other people that were selling. I could buy up some commercial business. So we got kind of like a fast track too on like, well, this commercial stuff better be working out or we better understand it essentially. Right. But my breakdown or my, whatever we're calling it, what is it?
Mix.
Very good.
Book of business.
There we go. Yeah, it's at about 70% commercial, 30% personal lines.
wow.
Okay, so like one big thing that we made
in a world dominated by men, you're killing it.
I also like my
Redhead in
privacy
charge.
because people kind of lose their mind sometimes when they encounter me. I don't know why, but I don't, because also like in this
I will
process,
fight for you.
I know. Well, and in this process, like preparing, you're like, hey, you might be able to give out your social media. I have none, okay, because I don't like to be found. So, I mean, I do have a LinkedIn, but so there's that. But we have a good density in it. And we started a good starting place on the commercial side is like going to be based off of gross revenue. I would say like if you're wanting to dabble in it, okay, in the capacity where you're not under a corporate carrier, meaning they corporately staff their offices, you're going to want to say, okay, I'm going to take anything under 2 million gross revenue. Okay.
Right.
Find one broker that you're connecting with via a good underwriter. Just one that's kind.
100%.
You know what I mean? Because they're going to help tighten things up.
They'll work with you.
Correct. And also just note, like it is kind of normal to feel like for the first 12 months, like, I don't know what's covered. It's almost like when you write your first auto policy and then tornado comes through and you're kind of like, well, I hope this stuff works,
Well, and that's when you would call us or talk to other agents, say, hey, how are you? What are you traditionally seeing?
Right. Yes.
Now, would you say that you started with a particular niche or?
I would like to say I did, but I didn't. So I would like to say, let me think.
I would like to say.
Yes, I would like to say I did. But what we did was, so it was a broker, local. I'm not even going to mention them because they did get acquired. They had a buyout about 5 years ago also. Okay. And that buyout has not gone smooth to where we're moving it all basically. Okay. So, but what I will say is do that. Find the broker.
Find a great underwriter.
That's right. And I have to say on Coverica, here's what I have found. And this is the beauty of like partnering with Coverica. Because there's a gross amount of misconduct, as we've kind of alluded to, right? And even people refer to it, and I told Chris a year ago or whatever when I was losing my mind again, where I was like, the fact that anything's referred to as the Wild West these days, is a little problematic. But nonetheless, I have found RPS. Okay. I'm a true RPSer. Okay. And so might not be everybody. The backup to RPS would be Burns and Wilcox, okay?
Yeah, and it depends on which office.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
But it all comes back to the person and the relationship.
That's right. And here's the thing. Every time I've had to, which has not been a lot, I'm saying I track about once a quarter, guys. So that's good news. So every time I've had to reach out to Coverica and say, I'm getting the runaround and I need a problem solver because, as we've grown, so is the premium, so is the risk. And the truth of the matter is now I have producers and I'm not actively selling where it's like not only is it a devastation to the customer whose business has to hold while we get their insurance requirements settled, right? But then my producer loses commission and that does not sit well with me. And that really is what usually by the time fire is lit under me, it's because I have a producer that's upset.
Right.
So every time I've had to reach out to Comerica, it's like, it is like a 2 hours later, we got some movement. Might not be the best, but like we're getting
movement.
Yes, because a big thing that I've heard is like unresponsiveness. And I can attest to, yes, there is unresponsiveness, right? The Wild West remark and things like that. And I will say the beauty has been the fact that like Comerica kind of takes that unresponsiveness out of play.
Yeah.
And then, but I will say too, just like we've discussed in the past, is like with commercial, there is a slower turnaround, but there's also not once you figure out how to organize. The biggest thing on commercial is issuing a pre-qualifier.
Yep.
For example, in my office, if you call me for assistance and you don't have a copy of the lost runs, then the discussion I have, I'm not upset, okay, because I've learned to control my temperament, okay? And also, if you can't figure it out, get some medication and then try to figure it out, okay? But is like, let's have this discussion. What led you not to require them to get you these documents, right? Because that gives us not good negotiation tools and things like that. But then, and that, because we are such referral based, like I don't even have a marketing campaign. I am intending to get one by the end of the year, but because we are heavily referral based, right? So even on top of that, I'm like, if we're referral based, we should be getting lost runs. Now, in the beginning, you're hungry, right? So you're just going to write everything. But that holdup can go into not having a document, okay? And then on the one thing I can say is, or suggest not doing is like they might say something like, hey, we need to have lost runs within 10 business days after binding, right? Well, as soon as you bind in an E&S or a brokered world, so this is going to be applicable to your RPSs, although they don't pay as much profitability bonus, which is also another thing that Comerica is lovely on. Like at first, the agents in my office, because we've discussed transparency, I'm like, here are the fees, here's this. Like I'm a full book. Like someone's like, you're hiding. No, these girls know, just so y'all know, if I get hit by a car, okay, 2 of them can keep me alive for sure for 2 years without even knowing I'm gone, okay? But they're totally happy this year after the profitability bonus disbursement. But brokers, they don't compensate as much, which is fine. But no, RPS and or Burns and Wilcox or CRC or any of them, they're here. As soon as you bind, you are responsible as the agent for a 25% minimum earned premium in all fees, okay? Yeah. So if you're like, oh, this is great, I just got this customer and blah, 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 but they're kind of giving you the push around on these reports, okay? And I'll tell you who also will hold these reports. The agent will, okay? And some clients might not have the backbone to force the agent to do what they're legally required to do. Yep. And that's a problem.
Are you ready to fire your
That's
agent?
correct. Yeah. Do you have the posture to be able to get this done? Because you're going to have to. I can do everything else, but I can't do this lost run report. Yes. Yeah. And so there's a lot of discussion, and that's really something to always be aware of is if you see a minimum earned premium situation, make sure you have your checklist ahead of time. I always encourage to pre-qualify a commercial client with something, even if it's not required to lost runs, do something to see that they want to do business with you.
That's amazing, right? You have an amazing story going from the captive, successfully transitioning in probably not the most ideal of situations.
No, which is kind of my life. But
and also pivoting completely from a personal lines to a commercial lines. I mean, it's an amazing story for anybody that wants to know that. So with that, what I will say is we probably could roll this into a part 2 at some point in time in the future because your background in transition was amazing. So what we could do is we'll plan on hear this audience at part 2.
That's right. But my last plug on this commercial side. Okay, my prediction. Not that my securities license means anything, but I just study investments all the time. Chris knows this. Economy-wise, guys. Like, first of all, we all know the averages of retaining a personal lines client. Okay, and on the commercial side, you got to figure out. And all I'm saying is, I have 5 securities licenses. Okay, I have all insurance lessons, obviously agency insurance lessons. I've dropped in 4 different states in the last year. Okay. I'm trying to, that our mission statement is to be able to grow with our clients.
Yep.
Okay. And so it's like the next step, in my opinion, would be to start dabbling in those gross sales 2 million and under. Okay.
Right.
Figure that out. Plus, don't overwhelm yourself with over brokering, like, or, to our standard market carriers like Liberty Mutual, Travelers, Hartford, Chubb, Guard. I can't remember, but I have my 2. I won't promote my 2, even though Ricky would like me to promote his 2. But
Ricky the clerk with a company that won't know.
Yeah, no, I know. Listen,
Shameless plug. No, it's okay.
The country cowboy Italian, non-Italian in me is like loyal to who gave me a window of opportunity during the time of just not realizing.
I'll say it. I'm not. I like them.
Liberty and Travelers are mine.
There you go.
Okay. But on the commercial side, but make sure that you build that good rapport.
Yeah.
However, the one caveat that I didn't realize is, yes, they are going to be picky. Okay. So you need to have that constant flow. So I would definitely encourage just to do one at a time and make sure you're compliant with their requirements, because you never really want to get unappointed from a standard market carrier. Brokers, I don't really care, because you're not appointed the same way. So anyway, but yeah.
Awesome.
I'm a book of knowledge, but I won't give that my attorney will be like, Amanda, you got to keep some of that stuff in your brain. I'm like, okay.
Well, speaking of book, so the way we like to wrap up, right?
Yes.
And you unfortunately were prepped ahead of time. So book, quote, something interesting that's grabbed your attention lately. So what is your one?
So I will give 2 books just because it depends on it.
Overachiever.
Okay. No. Because I couldn't remember the name of it. I just remember the guy's name's Jocko. Okay. And
Jocko
I follow
Willink,
him. Yes. Okay. And then, so extreme ownership. And the irony is, this morning when I was thinking about it, I'm like, I think that is what I read in 2019, where it was like really just like, listen, there's so many things. And this also bothers me today whenever I see people are like, oh, I need to get gassed up and stuff. And I'm like, I don't get why you're crying in general, because you got to take what's out there, right?
Yep.
You can't control a lot of changes. You can't control the market.
Stop worrying about what you can't control.
Right.
Get out there.
Find your team. Operate in your team's strengths.
Yep.
Like seeing on Facebook, everybody's like, if your producer's not doing this, no. Like, first of all, don't take any feedback from Facebook, okay? I mean, come on. But making sure that each team member, each of my personalities in my office, I have 3 of the 4. I don't have a phlegmatic. I'll probably never will. Go figure, right? But they do have different strengths, and they are needed, especially when you're moving with so many different carrier contracts and commercial policies. I want the detailitis person. I want the person that knows how to kind of smooth it over, right? But then if you are the all-in-one and you are the attorney personalities of the world with the RBF pauses and stuff, the other one that really worked for me, regardless of political preference, is Words That Work by Frank Luntz. Okay. He is technically recognized as like a Republican pollster. Okay. But his education background is in all the psychology of like the usage of words. Okay. And so this book, it's kind of boring, but it's also fascinating if you like psychology and things like that, where, instead of like, look at the time, especially in the captive market, instead of being like, well, your policy is going to increase, 48%. It's like, hey, your policy adjust, give the nominal amount. It's going to psychology hit different, right? So if you find yourself getting ripped a new one every time, maybe start studying language a little bit, the linguistics of whatever, right? Yeah. So those are my 2 books. So Extreme Ownership by
Jocko Willink.
How do we say Leaf? Is it Babin?
Leaf Babin.
Look at that. Okay. And then Frank Luntz, I think is his name. Awesome. I know it's his name. I don't know if it's pronounced that way. Words That Work.
By the way, I was trying to come up with a friendly way to say RBF, the definition of it, and I looked up natural expression.
This is just the way I look.
Or as my 9-year-old boy said one time when I said, wipe that look off your face, and he went, I can't. It's my face.
I always say, hey, are you doing good? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing great. It's like, okay, great. Let your face know.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to bring back a really good one, Traction by Gino Wickman, because we just came off of our 90-day review, working on what we're going to be working on the next 90 days, as well as working with one of my mentors to actually institute Traction for his company. And so, yeah, I definitely recommend. Also, along with that is Get a Grip and a lot of the other books. But yeah.
Amazing foundational tool.
Yeah.
Say the name of the book one more time.
Traction.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's it basically high level. It's an operational management system that allows you to document. Oh, you're writing it
Yeah,
down?
no,
I will
was
give
like,
you a copy of this book.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I was going to because I read books like crazy right now. So.
I will tell you one of the first things you're going to do is read that book, and the next book following it is Mark Winter's Rocket Fuel, and then as well as what is it? My brain just went blank. Extraordinary, the 4 skills of an extraordinary executive team or something.
Oh, okay. Was that written by the same person that is the 4 skills of blah, blah, of
See, I'm doing it too. Anyway,
It's a series.
It's a series. It
okay.
all builds.
Are you going to email me
they
this
all build.
after
I will.
then?
Yes,
Okay,
I will
great.
happily
Great.
do that.
I'm like, otherwise.
I may have to put a footnote into the description
Chris,
of the
can I have your
podcast.
pen again? Just kidding. Not Chris, Chad. Sorry. It's the 2 C's. Okay.
You can call me whatever. And mine, I'm actually go back to our previous was Beyond the Hammer, because we talked about it had 5 pillars.
Yeah.
It's a construction based leadership guide, very very simple, easy read, but amazing concepts broken down into like daily use, which was phenomenal. And one of the 5 pillars was that belief is transferable. So when you talk about, like your belief in what you can do, what your agents can do, the fact that we can take that, and if we're specific and intentional in how we convey that, how it can lift up our team and really set the leadership tone for everybody else around us. So
Love it. That's great.
It was worth a second mention.
No, I think that's wonderful.
So awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us, Amanda. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Wonderful. Thank
Chris,
you.
great job as always.
Thank you.
And to our audience, thank you again for tuning in to Agency Ascend. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until we see you next time, onward and upward.